Welcome back to our daily read aloud, My Side of the Mountain. Yesterday, we finished reading After the Big Halloween Party. So can somebody summarize how that went? Josiah?
Awful.
Awful.
They got into his house and tried to destroy it and tried to get all of his stuff.
Yes, they threw all his stored food all over the place. And that would be a big deal to us because we'd have a big mess to clean up. And then we could just go to the store and buy more food. Yeah. Why is it a bigger deal for Sam? Angie?
It's not about that, but Frightful got sick.
Okay, Frightful got sick from the fire. He had to fix his fireplace to let the smoke out. All right, Noah?
The big deal is like it's about winter and he just can't go to the store.
Right.
And like they ate most of his food and threw it everywhere. So he might not want to eat it because he could have put like germs and everything, and because he needs the food for the winter.
Yes. So he'd been storing up a little bit of extra food every day, so they had a big stockpile. Okay, so a big stockpile is like what a squirrel would do in the winter, chipmunks, any animal that has to live through the winter. Nothing really grows in the winter, so you've got to store it all in advance. So they messed up all his food storage, and he got sprayed by a skunk. A bat came in his house. 2 raccoons were in there. And what did he do to get everyone to leave? He had to act kind of strange. Does anyone remember? Zoe?
He yelled at them.
He yelled and snarled and growled and looked big. So is he trying to kind of act animal back at them to let them know, I'm in charge here. You can go away. Okay? So they finally left, and he's kind of over it. So that was the end of that chapter. So this next one, I told you the title is, I Find Out What to Do with Hunters. Okay? So here we go. That party had a moral ending. Don't feed wild animals. Have I been telling you guys that all the time?
Don't feed them.
Don't feed wild animals. I picked up and counted my walnuts and hickory nuts. I was glad to discover there was more mess than loss. I decided that I would not only live until spring, but that I still had more nuts than all the squirrels on Gribley's, including the flying squirrels. In early November, I was awakened one morning by a shot from a rifle. The hunting season had begun. I'd forgotten all about it. So this is hunting season. So are these people hunting legally or are they poaching? Noah?
Hunting legally.
Yeah, you are allowed to go hunting. You still have to follow the rules, but they are allowed to be here. I'd forgotten all about that. To hide from a swarm of hunters was truly going to be a trick. They would be behind every tree and on every hill and dale. They would be shooting at everything that moved. And here was I in deerskin pants and a dirty brown sweater, looking like a deer. I decided, like the animals, to stay holed up the first day of the season. I whittled a fork and finished my rabbit skin winter underwear. Yay, he's been working on those for a while. I cracked a lot of walnuts. The second day of the hunting season, I stuck my head out of my door and decided my yard was messy. I picked it up so that it looked like a forest floor. The third day of the hunting season, some men came in and camped by the gorge. I tried to steal down the other side of the mountain to the north stream, found another camp of hunters there, and went back to my tree. By the end of the week, both Frightful and I were in need of exercise. Gunshots were still snapping around the mountain. I decided to go see Miss Turner at the library. About an hour later, I wrote this. I got as far as the edge of the hemlock grove when a shot went off practically at my elbow. I didn't have Frightful's jesses in my hand, and she took off at the blast. I climbed a tree. There was a hunter so close to me, he could have bitten me. But apparently, he was busy watching his deer. I was able to get up into the high branches without being seen. First, I looked around for Frightful. I could see her nowhere. I wanted to whistle for her, but I didn't think I should. I sat still and looked and wondered if she'd go home. I watched the hunter track his deer. The deer was still running. From where I was, I could see it plainly, going toward the old Gribley farm site. Quietly, I climbed higher and watched. Then, of all things, it jumped the stone fence and fell dead. I thought I would stay in the tree until the hunter quartered his kill and dragged it out to the road. Then it occurred to me that he wasn't even going to find that deer. He was going off at an angle, and from what I could see, the deer had dropped in a big bank of dry ferns and would be hard to find. So a little bit about deer tracking. I do know all this stuff from growing up where I did. After you shoot a deer, they don't normally just fall over, okay? Noah, what do?
They leave blood tracks. You have to follow that. Maybe it could take like several days.
Mm-hmm.
Or I could take a couple hours.
Yes. So when anyone in my family would get a deer, they would, try to see where it ran off and mark that spot in your head. Then you'd come get all my brothers and my dad. Sometimes I'd help. And we'd all go out and try to follow the bloodlines the deer left, right? Because it got hurt, so it's bleeding. And you can go see where it fell. So you always want to find your deer. Because if you don't find it, it's just really sad, right? You killed an animal for no reason. You can't eat the meat or anything. So sometimes you can't find your deer. So what do you think Sam's planning? Noah?
Maybe he's going to take it for his own meat to eat it.
And what else does he want to make for himself to wear?
Clothes out of the deer.
Yeah, so he's got his deerskin pants and he's got moccasins, but he doesn't have a top yet, and he really wants one. So maybe he's got some plans. Okay, so he's going off in the wrong direction. It got to be nerve-wracking at this point. I could see my new jacket lying in the ferns and the hunter looking for it. I closed my eyes and mentally steered him to the left. Then, good old Frightful. She had winged down the mountain and was sitting in a sapling maple not far from the deer. She saw the man and screamed. He looked in her direction. Heaven knows what he thought she was. But he turned and started toward her. She rustled her wings, climbed into the sky, and disappeared over my head. I did want to whistle for her, but feared for my deer, myself, and her. I hung in the tree and waited about a half an hour. Finally, the man gave up his hunt. His friends called and he went on down the mountain. I went down the tree. In the dry ferns lay a nice young buck. I covered it carefully with some of the stones from the fence and more ferns and rushed home. I whistled, and down from the top of my own hemlock came Frightful. I got a piece of birch bark to write all this on so I wouldn't get too anxious and go for the deer too soon. We will wait until dark to go get our dinner and my new jacket. I am beginning to think I'll have all the deer hide and venison I can use. There must be other lost game on this mountain. I got the deer after dark, and I was quite right. Before the season was over, I got 2 more deer in the same way. However, with the first deer to work on, the rest of the season passed quickly. I had lots of scraping and preparing to do. My complaint was that I did not dare light a fire and cook that wonderful meat. I was afraid of being spotted. I ate smoked venison, nut meats, and hawthorn berries. Hawthorn berries taste a little bit like apples. They are smaller and drier than apples. They also have big seeds in them. The hawthorn bush is easy to tell because it has big, red, shiny thorns on it. Each day the shooting lessened as the hunters left the hills and went home. As they cleared out, Frightful and I were freer and freer to roam. The air temperature now was cold enough to preserve the venison, so I didn't smoke the last 2 deer. And about 2 weeks after I heard the first alarming shot, I cut off a beautiful steak, built a bright fire, and when the embers were glowing, I had myself a real dinner. I soaked some dried puffballs in water, and when they were big and moist, I fried them with wild onions and skimpy old wild carrots and stuffed myself until I felt kindly toward all men. And I wrote this, November 26th. Hunters are excellent friends if used correctly. Don't let them see you, but follow them closely. Preferably use the tops of trees for this purpose, for hunters don't look up. They look down and to the right and left and straight ahead. So if you stay in the trees, you can not only see what they shoot, but where it falls. And if you are extremely careful, you can sometimes get to it before they do and hide it. That's how I got my 3rd deer. I had a little more trouble tanning these hides because the water in my oak stump kept freezing at night. It was getting cold. I began wearing my rabbit fur underwear most of the morning. It was still too warm at noon to keep it on, but it felt good at night. I slept in it until I got my blanket made. I did not scrape the deer hair off my blanket. I liked it on. Because I had grown, one deer skin wouldn't even cover me. I sewed part of another one to it. The 3rd hide I made into a jacket. I just cut a rectangle with a hole in it for my head and sewed on straight wide sleeves. I put enormous pockets all over it, using every scrap I had, including the pouches I had made last summer. It looked like a cross between a Russian military blouse and a carpenter's apron, but it was warm, roomy, and I thought, handsome. All right, and today I will show you this picture. Whoop. People at home, there's our picture of Sam in his outfit. So you can see all of his pockets for collecting things and Frightful up on his shoulder. So now he's got his full outfit made, and a blanket, and a door. So he's in a lot better shape.
And he was going home.
All right, and we are going to stop there today. So thank you, people at home, and I'll see you later.
It was like